Hey guys, it is NCS Fan 001 here, welcoming you to episode 4 of Trophy Hunting Academy. Hopefully I sound okay by now. Feeling better from being kinda sick, so hopefully this sounds okay. Anyway, today's episode is discussing how we rate trophy difficulties. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and give a disclaimer with this. A lot of this is going to be discussed in more detail later on, like various things I discuss with this, whether it be like grind-based trophies or multiplayer trophies or stuff like that. So some of the stuff may not be discussed until much later on, but I'm going to try to give like a pretty good brief overview of how to rate trophies as well as just games in general on difficulty. So there are actually quite a few different ways to rate a game's difficulty, quite a few different categories you have to look at. First category I like to look at is number of trophies. That's one thing. However, that's not always going to be accurate. But generally, if a game has less trophies, it's generally going to be easier to 100% or Platinum. And examples of that would be games like Spare Parts and Terminator Salvation. Those games combined have less than 30 trophies, including 2 Platinums, and are both no tougher than a 3 out of 10, probably even less than that if I remember Spare Parts correctly. Whereas at the same time, The Last of Us has, I believe, around 25 trophies, including a Platinum, yet it's more like a 6 out of 10, I would say, and for other reasons as well, that I'm going to discuss probably later in this video. But number of trophies is not always going to be accurate, but generally a rule of thumb is less trophies means easier to Platinum, or faster to Platinum, stuff like that. Probably the biggest indicator of difficulty is just the types of trophies that you see in any given game. Are the trophies heavily story-oriented, to where you'll get them all just by playing through the story? That would be like Terminator Salvation, because that game, every single trophy is based on completing the game. Although, one trophy is based off of difficulty. But that's one type. There's also grind-based trophies. Do you have to grind out a lot of items to get it? Do you have to find a bunch of collectibles? That's another type of trophy. And are there luck-based trophies? Are there a lot of multiplayer-based trophies? So that's all stuff you really have to look at, because a lot of people have different opinions on what trophies they don't like. And actually the next video is going to be a discussion about grind-based trophies, collectible-based trophies, and luck-based trophies. So yeah, I guess you're getting a spoiler for the next episode. But I'm going to be doing a poll for that later on, and that I'll be discussing in the video. But I mean, a lot of people might not want to play a game, at least not for its trophies, because it has a lot of collectible-based trophies. Kung Fu Panda 2 is heavily collectible-oriented. Sly 1 is heavily collectible-oriented, as is Sly 4. So a lot of games might have a lot of collectibles, and that might turn people away. Same thing with the grind-based trophies or the multiplayer-based trophies, because I personally tend to enjoy single-player games a lot, and I don't always want to have like a ton of multiplayer trophies. I think Evolve is almost entirely multiplayer, which I have not actually played that game. I've been meaning to try it out or pick it up somewhere, I just haven't had the time. But really, if you want to determine the difficulty, you do have to look at all the different types of trophies. Again, are they story-based, multiplayer-based? Are there a lot of collectible-based trophies, a lot of grind-based trophies, a lot of luck-based trophies? Stuff like that. That's something you really have to think about when you're rating trophy difficulties. The next aspect to it, and this is pretty much the last major aspect to it, is time to Platinum. Like the first topic I discussed, this can be a bit deceiving as well, in that games can be very easy to Platinum, but might take a while. Well, the Sly games weren't really all that way, but The Walking Dead Season 1, that's a good example of it. The Walking Dead Season 1 takes around 8 hours probably to Platinum, especially if you aren't following a guide. Even though it is less than a 1 out of 10 in difficulty, it takes a good 8 hours to Platinum. So in that case, it's a little bit different from the rule. But generally speaking, if a game doesn't take that long to Platinum or 100%, then it's probably going to be easier. Both, again, Terminator Salvation and Spare Parts. Well, no, not Spare Parts as much, but Terminator Salvation takes about 4 to 5 hours at most. Megamind takes about 3 hours. Toy Story Mania takes 3 hours. Magus takes around 5 hours, and that's only because of the amount of grinding you have to do. So, generally, if a game takes a lot longer to Platinum, it's going to be more difficult to Platinum. It's going to be a higher difficulty. And like The Last of Us, again, is another good example of that. It takes a very long time to platinum because of the amount of multiplayer you have to do. And pretty much any game that's heavily online focused is going to be that way. However, one last major thing I want to discuss when it comes to determining trophy difficulty, even though I've already given you sort of all the categories that you might judge game's difficulty on, there's one last thing I want everyone to consider, and that is the fact that everyone's rating of a game is generally going to be different for difficulty. Some people are going to just not be FPS people, first-person shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield or whatever, to where they might have a lot more difficulty with those games, but might be a lot better at RPGs or strategy-based games or puzzle-based games. Or it might be the other way around. People might be beasts at FPSs but suck at strategy games and such, which is generally how I am, because I get really impatient with puzzles and such. So it's going to be kind of subjective no matter what, and again, there's the discussion of what's worse. Are grind-based trophies really bad versus collectible trophies? How much will that turn you away from wanting to platinum a game? So every rating is going to be kind of subjective, and in all honesty, I have personally found that the ratings of difficulties for guides by ps3trophies.org, which writes a lot of the major guides, quite a few of those I feel like have been pretty inaccurate at times. Like, Sound Shapes being like a 3 or 4 out of 10, it's more like a 6, mostly because it's heavily luck-based and aggravating. But you get stuff like that, or you get games like, I think they rated Transistor as like a 4 out of 10. It's not that bad, even though it does have some luck-based stuff again. But in the end, it's all going to be really, really subjective. And like I said, I don't think ps3trophies.org always does the best job of it. I would say if you really want to find a trophy difficulty, either you want to look at a few different sites, preferably, or a few different guides of it. There's generally going to be multiple guides for a lot of games. Now, you can pretty much guarantee that if it's a kid's game, everyone's going to think it's easy. That's how most kids' games are, so don't worry about those. But pretty much any game that's not like a straight-up kids game, you might want to look at multiple sources or join like a Facebook trophy hunting group like the one that I'm a part of. Maybe I'll link it in the description or something. And we can usually give you a pretty accurate representation of the difficulty of a game and the time to platinum and the fun of it as well. That's something that we constantly do. So I would say you might also want to like look up videos of the game or something as well to see if you might be good at it or not. Because like I said, it's going to be very subjective as to what types of trophies you like or don't like, or your skill with various types of gaming. Younger gamers are probably going to have a lot more trouble with most like older people games, like the more violent shooters and stuff like that might have a lot of difficult trophies, and they might have more problems with it because they're younger and less experienced. So in the end, it's going to be very subjective, so it's really going to be up to you to determine how difficult you think a game is. But generally, if you can talk to enough people, you can usually figure out where it should be rated on that scale of 1 to 10. And in the end, still usually ps3trophies.org, they usually get it right, but like I said, there have definitely been a few outliers to that, but I guess there's always going to be some issues with it. And yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully you guys got some good information out of it, especially if you're, lower level, newer trophy hunter, as the series is more aimed toward. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll be back to a typical Wednesday upload of this next week when I'm not really sick anymore. So again, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you for the next episode next week.